On a winter night in 1931, an entire family vanished from their farmhouse in Illinois, leaving behind only a locked room, 4 identical dolls, and a diary that no one was meant to read. From the very first frame, we see frost crawling across broken glass. A child's laughter echoes faintly, then stops. The voiceover cuts in, low and commanding. This is not folklore. This is not exaggeration. What happened to the Morlok family and the Genain Quadruplets was buried beneath a century of silence, because the truth was unfit for the public eye. Between 1800 and 1950, America collected its orphans and its troubled children into asylums, seminaries, and model homes. These institutions were often presented as miracles of progress, but inside their walls, records were lost, altered, or deliberately destroyed. The story of the Morlok family begins not with their disappearance, but with a set of sealed documents in a St. Louis psychiatric archive, labeled only Genain for confidential. The Morloks lived outside Springfield, Illinois, a devout, quiet family. Neighbors described them as distant but respectable. Yet, their farmhouse had odd features. Bricked-over windows, a cellar with iron bolts, and a locked nursery that no visitor was allowed to enter. According to county records, the Morloks had 4 daughters born in 1912, quadruplets who were never seen at church, school, or in town. When investigators finally entered the house after the family's disappearance, the nursery was intact. 4 identical cribs, 4 identical white dresses, 4 porcelain dolls, their faces cracked, their eyes darkened with ash, and a phrase carved into the wood of the wall, repeated over and over, "One is many, many is one." Decades later, the Genain Quadruplets were studied in psychiatric literature as an unprecedented case of shared schizophrenia. What the public never knew is that the name Genain was not their birth name. It was a replacement, chosen by doctors to conceal their origins. Their true surname was Morlok. The family did not vanish into thin air. They were absorbed into the system, into the experiment, into something much darker. The Morloks were parishioners at St. Adelphus, a Lutheran church with deep German immigrant roots. The church ledger lists the baptism of 4 girls, all on the same day. But curiously, the pastor noted in Latin beside their names, duplicem animum, duplicem peccatum, a double soul, a double sin. Even then, whispers spread that the girls were not merely children, but vessels. Among the evidence recovered from the farmhouse was a diary belonging to Anna Morlok, the mother. In it, she describes strange rituals the girls performed without instruction, chanting in unison, speaking in dead languages, scratching symbols into the floor. She begged her husband to seek help from the church, but the pastor insisted they were chosen, that their condition was a sacred trial. By 1930, the Morlok girls were removed from their home under the guise of psychiatric treatment. Records show they were admitted to the Illinois State Asylum for the Insane, where researchers from Washington University conducted observation studies. The public reports describe only mild delusions. The private notes, however, speak of violent dissociation, mirror-like behaviors, and entire nights of synchronized screaming that shook the foundations of the building. On January 4, 1931, the Morlok farmhouse was found abandoned. The parents gone. The children transferred. Local authorities were told the family relocated quietly, but neighbors told a different story, of hearing a chorus of children's voices echoing from the woods, of lanterns flickering through the fog, and of a man's scream cut short by sudden silence. A 1933 medical report classified as sealed by order of state contains one chilling entry. All 4 subjects exhibit identical hallucinations, identical speech patterns, and identical psychotic breaks, as though a single consciousness has partitioned itself across 4 bodies. Case name changed to Genain. The name itself was symbolic, from Greek, meaning of birth or origin. After their asylum years, the quadruplets were placed into St. Mary's Orphanage, an institution with a reputation for cruelty. Children who lived there later described the sisters as silent, always together, and watched closely by priests who forbade others from speaking with them. Some swore the girls could finish each other's sentences, or that they never blinked when looking directly at you. By 1935, Springfield was gripped by rumors. Farm animals found mutilated. Children missing, always in fours. People whispered that the Morlok girls were seen at the edge of fields at night, their white dresses glowing faintly in the moonlight, standing motionless until the observer blinked, and then gone. In 1940, an anonymous seminarian leaked notes describing the church's obsession with the Morlok sisters. The priests believed they embodied the tetramorph, for living creatures from Ezekiel's vision, representing divine judgment. But where Scripture saw angels, the church saw an opportunity. They kept the girls under surveillance, hoping to weaponize what they called their shared vessel. By adolescence, the sisters' behaviors grew more violent. Nurses described them carving into their own skin, always the same symbols, always in perfect symmetry. When restrained, their heartbeats synchronized unnaturally, as if driven by a single rhythm. Several doctors resigned, citing unexplainable dread in their presence. By 1945, all official documentation of the quadruplets stopped. Medical records were sealed. Church archives disappeared in a fire. Newspapers that once referenced their case cut all mentions. It was as though 4 young women had never existed. Except, in hushed tones, asylum workers claimed they were relocated once more, to a seminary basement in St. Louis, where no one ever emerged again. Some historians argue the Morlok/Genain case was one of the earliest examples of state-sponsored psychiatric experimentation, precursors to later mind control programs. Others whisper that the girls weren't ill at all, but manifestations of something older, something that required a human family as a door. The truth sits between psychology and theology, rotting in locked archives. The phrase carved in their nursery, "One is many, many is one," appears again in seminary graffiti from the 1940s, and even on gravestones in unmarked Catholic cemeteries across Illinois. It is not merely a child's scribble, but a doctrine of multiplicity, a hymn to fragmentation. Scholars who trace it back find roots in 16th century witch trials in Germany, carried overseas with immigrant congregations. In 1951, one nurse, aged, terrified, dying, confessed that the girls were not killed, but absorbed. She described a midnight mass where they were dressed in white, chanting as one voice, before disappearing into the church vaults. "The ground shook," she whispered, "and the walls bled." Her testimony was dismissed as madness. Today, official psychiatric texts still mention the Genain Quadruplets, but only as a case study of schizophrenia. Their origins are never noted. The farmhouse no longer stands. St. Mary's Orphanage is gone. And yet, travelers on back roads near Springfield claim to see 4 figures in white by the roadside. Children who never grew up, waiting for the next person to stop. What happened to the Morlok family was not an accident, and not a mystery. It was a choice made by churches, by doctors, by the state. They chose silence. They chose erasure. But silence does not destroy. It only hides. And when you bury something alive, it waits. The screen darkens. A faint chorus of 4 girls' voices whispers. One is many. Many is one.